record, and that should be going on. So I'm going to stop sharing and show you myself now. I've got in the background this kind of fun thing that I'm working on right now called and I'm just testing it out. I know that if you click on me, like I've still got weird wavy motions and what are those called, the echoes or whatever of my hand. But it's kind of a neat little tool that is like a virtual camera. It lets me move myself around. It lets me become invisible and put the content front and center. It lets me have things in the background here that I can move around, so I can share my screen here and still be on the screen, and then I can point to things on the screen, which is kind of a neat, or at least it has a potential for being a neat thing. So, welcome to today's lab. I'm going to share now the activity sheet, and I'm going to share it in the application screen here. And that should come up. Right, it's like the weather guy or the weather person on your TV station. I can be like, and we've got a cold front moving in here, so get your glass windows for your outdoor office. All right, we're going to talk about engaging students. How many of you are feeling like your students are just not very engaged these days because of whatever the reason is? Is anybody having any struggle keeping your students engaged? Are you having trouble being engaged yourself, perhaps? Zoom fatigue is real, right? So how are we combating that? How are we, what can we do to sort of make that a little bit less of an issue than it is? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, that's a broad topic, and I think it's going to be one of the most important topics of the semester, probably of this whole pandemic teaching, right? It's very easy for students to get lost and to feel like I just don't have the time to do this right now, or I've lost track of what's happening here, or I don't know where we are. It's easy to get lost. So we need to, as instructors, keep them engaged. And there are many ways to do that. So going over the activity sheet today, we have the structure of the lab at the first part here, right? And you can access this activity sheet. You'll see that that link is in the chat. Please feel free to do so, and then you can add your ideas here as well. And we're going to have a little activity sheet that I just introduced before the last of you came in. But then we're going to go back to this sheet and we're going to try to answer some questions that you are putting in here. And we're going to, because this is a participant-driven thing, we want to answer your questions. So thank you for adding them here. And we want you to leave with some concrete strategies. Now at the top of the activity sheet, I've got general tips. And these are very sort of broad strategies that you can say, oh, I know 5 ways to do this, right? And then down below, what I tried to do this week for the activity sheet was to have some actual very concrete tips, like 6 ways to create engagement motivators. So how do we create motivations for our students to do that? And then we've got some concrete ideas here. 10 ways to use Google Slides and Docs to structure activities. And again, one of the things that we're doing right now is the or we will be doing today, I'm trying out for the first time, so bear with me, that it's called, it's the app. Thank you, Tom. We're going to try the affinity slides today, so play along with me. I hope it goes well, but if it doesn't, play along, right? I'm always happy to model really terrible teaching as well and making mistakes. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead to the very top here. And I'd like to explain this activity slide, the slides that we're going to be doing. Let's see if I can navigate over to it. Has anyone else noticed that the Blackboard Collaborate is taking a lot longer to share your material than it did last week, 2 weeks ago? I feel like this is happening to me. Yes. Okay, well, some of you have, some of you have not, and maybe I don't even have a lot of tabs open right now. So the idea of this activity is that I want, if you were my students and I was your instructor, what I would do is I would try to, oftentimes I break you up into groups, and I say, all right, group one, you're randomly assigned, and there are 5 of you, and you will talk about X, Y, or Z, right? Or I might say, all groups talk about something, and I would assign that. What this does instead is it says, all right, maybe it's the 2nd, 3rd, 5th week of class. You all know how to work in those groups. Let's take it a next level up and let you choose the group. So we're empowering the students, giving them some choice. They're already familiar with working in breakout groups. Maybe they're already familiar with the slides, as we've done activity slides in the past. So now we say, go to your own slide, go to the slide that you want to, and talk about the topic that you want to talk about with the people that you want to talk about. So if you want to talk about asynchronous discussions and how to engage students with asynchronous discussions, or if you want to talk about how to engage students in breakout groups like what we're doing right now, or group projects, or something else that I don't have a slide for, but you're like, man, I wish we could talk about this, go to that slide, change the bottom of it, and what you can do is you can get your own, make it something really cool so that people are like, oh, I want to go to group 5. And then you have the choice and the chance to move around as you'd like between the groups. So if you started talking about asynchronous discussions and then somebody says, oh, group 5, we're going to talk about the weather, and you're like, I'm done with asynchronous discussions, let's talk about the weather, you can get out and go to group 5 and talk about the weather, and that'll be fine. All right, does that make sense to everybody? Does everyone know how to move the groups on their own? That's a really good question. And Karen Spader, would you be willing to talk them through that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so basically, once the groups start, which I haven't clicked go yet, but once they start, then you'll need to click on the attendee tab to the right of your chat. And then you'll scroll down and you'll find the group you want to enter. To the right of the title of the name of that group, there's a little box with a green arrow, and that's the enter the door, so to speak. And then you'll be in that room. So you'll have the power to move around rooms that way through that attendee tab.
And then you'll be able to talk to the people who are
Right.
on the same slide. The link
Right.
to the slides, I will put that in. It's in the activity sheet at the very top of the activity sheet. I'm going to put that link in the chat just now. Oh, you already found it. Excellent. So you'll break into groups, and then you'll choose a slide, and you'll start filling out the slide, design it however you want. No structure on the slides today. So it might just be add a single word, or add an idea, or add a question, and then you can talk to each other and document what you're talking about on the slides. Got it?
And if you're having trouble entering a room once I start them, just speak up. Let us know. We can help you.
Yeah. So we'll give it 15 minutes. That way you can get to maybe 2 groups. This is kind of like a table activity that you would have in a classroom, right? Where you're like, if you want to talk about whatever, go to table 5. If you want to talk about whatever, go to table 2. So you kind of know how to already do this. So we're going to do it. And I'll call you back at about 1:30, okay? Sounds good. Break them up, Karen.
Okay. Okay, so groups are now available. So if you enter that attendee tab, you're going to need to scroll down a little until you start seeing the groups. And then you can enter whichever one you'd like.
I'm going to
We'll move
share
in.
the main room, I think, just so I can talk people through it.
The attendee tab, MK, is down where you type in the chat. Just to the right of the chat bubble, you see an image of two little people heads. That's the attendee tab. It should have those two people and show the number 30 next to it. Yep, there, John. Thank you.
There, I got it. Yeah, so
Hey,
the
John,
two
can
people
you hear
down
me?
here. Yes, I
Can
can.
you hear me? Do you want us to stay out or pop into any of them, or?
Oh, your choice. Why don't you join them if you'd like to?
This is Mary Kay. I have the attendee tab, but when I scroll down, I don't see groups. So where would I see the
You don't.
It looks like the groups have closed.
Oh yeah, I don't
Or at
see the
least-
little arrow to go in them now for some reason.
I see the arrow.
That's weird.
There you
By
go.
sharing, by
I
sharing
already
my,
did it. Try again, please.
And I saw them at one point.
They're back. Yeah.
They're
I see
back.
them now.
Let me get out of there and try again. That's odd. Mine are gone.
so I see that some people are joining the groups, and that's good. I'm going to stop sharing because this infinity
They
here
were-
is just too much.
They,
They periodically
yeah, they're-
disappear and then appear again.
they're coming and going.
Is this a Blackboard thing, perhaps?
I've never seen that happen. I don't see them, but I am a moderator, so I can drag myself anywhere. But normally I see the little arrow.
I see them.
Could it be that you only have a certain amount of time to choose what room you're going to, and then the moderator has to open them again?
No, I don't. No. It still seems to be set up correctly. I see people in rooms.
And I'm in the main room just to keep reporting, but yeah, I can't see them again. I would see them. I've probably seen them flicker on and off 3 times, maybe 4 times right now.
They do all show up for me.
Yeah, I'm seeing what Cliff has reported. They come and go. Yeah, now they're
That's
back.
weird.
Oh, all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, now they're back. Yeah.
Huh, strange. I'll join one because there's only one person in there. So.
All right, the participants who are still in the main room, are you still unable to see the group rooms, breakout group rooms? So
Okay,
Angela,
and
you are unable to see them.
And now I can see them, but but the little door with the green arrow disappeared, so I can't.
Right, I don't have it either. Weird. And
Yeah, there
it is
must be
set up
some weird-
correctly. It's set
There
up
must be-
correctly. Yeah, it's-
Okay, now I got it. Okay.
that's weird.
This is
I don't have
exciting.
Oh,
There must be some glitch going on because I've done this before and it's worked fine.
It's a trap. Yep. Once you join the group, you're never coming back.
It's like Hotel
so weird.
California.
That's so weird that it keeps disappearing and then reappearing. Oh,
You just got to get the timing right. It's like a whack-a-mole.
There they go. So there's a few of you left. If you want to let me know what room you want in, I can put you in there.
I can't select myself because people keep selecting, so it keeps moving on me.
Yeah, so that is a. this is
I
a
was
good
trying to drag
experience.
myself into one, but it keeps moving.
I'm gonna go talk to group project number 4.
I was trying to get into one, but let me see if I can do it now.
Karen, I can put you in group 1.
Yeah, because I was trying to update and it gives me a red arrow saying I can't update my group. Thank you. For
Oh,
some
you
odd
want to
reason.
go through the attendee tab, not the breakout setup. Oh, I just moved. Whoops, I just threw her over there before she could respond. Sorry. All right, so Hasna, Rashmi, and Will, do you have a group that you'd like to be moved to?
I went to a room that there was no one in, just
Okay.
seeing, and then it took a while to figure out where to go. So
I can move you if
And-
you.
yeah, I'm not feeling strongly one way or the other.
All right.
And the breakout groups have disappeared.
They've
So,
disappeared again for you. Huh?
this
Yep.
is Rashmi. I've joined late and I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to do.
Sure. Okay, so let me first put the links to the slides in the chat. Okay, so in the chat, the link to the slides and the different. And basically, if there's a topic on those, slides 1 through 5 have written topics on them, and I can move you into one of those rooms.
Okay.
Karen, just
I would go to group 2.
2, okay, Rashmi, I'll move you to 2.
and Karen, just put me wherever. It doesn't matter.
Okay, sure. And there you go. Dan.
Welcome
Welcome
back
back
as
to the
we
main room.
repopulate. Hope everybody had an interesting time. That was that one. Let me move that over here. Let me make that bigger. That's too big.
Can I say something that I think I may have figured out some of what was going on?
Yes, please.
Sure. So one of the things that I think might have been happening, and this is really important to know if you have multiple moderators, is so I went in and set up the breakout groups, right? I set all 10 of them up. I renamed their titles, and I clicked on the box that said allow attendees to switch rooms. And then I started the rooms up. And so basically the thing that I think happened was that another moderator went into the breakout group setup, tried to move someone and clicked update, and that threw off what I had already set up. The other thing I noticed was that when I would go out of the breakout setup and then came back in, that little checkbox that says allow attendees to switch rooms would disappear every time. So I feel like what was happening is that we had moderator crossover happening, that another moderator went in there and updated without realizing that that box wasn't checked. This is all just my hunch, but I think that's what was going on.
I like it.
So just make sure that if you have multiple moderators, one person's in charge of the setup and everyone enters the room via the attendees tab.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Thank you for digging into that. And disclaimer, breakout groups in Teams are different. Microsoft Teams. So if you're using Microsoft Teams, that's probably different. Breakout groups in Zoom is probably different, right? So breakout groups in, does WebEx have breakout groups? I think it does. So it all is different, and it can, you just gotta roll with the punches, I guess. That was my first time trying this activity. What do you think? How can it be better next time? Moderator crossover, we'll minimize that. Yeah, go ahead, Cliff.
John, I'd actually say that maybe this is part of your master plan, but you actually kind of demonstrated group project work here. You demonstrated an option for instructors to use. This I actually thought was pretty clever to get.
Interesting.
So that's good. As long as, I thought it was good. It was good.
It was, it's certainly a thing that we as meta as possible and to give people as transparent of an experience. All right, so I'm seeing in the chat that it's good to have options. Does it feel like, you know, you're not just following along somebody else's plan, but you, even though it was a constrained plan, you still had like, oh, I can choose slide A or slide B. Hard to be the first in the group. MK, say more about that. Like you sit in the slide and you're like, I'm all alone here?
Well, I'm thinking from a student's perspective, and even for myself, as I was choosing from the few rooms that I could actually see, the ones that had nobody in it were less appealing because I felt like if I go in there, am I going to just sit there by myself for 15 minutes? And I can imagine for students too, if there's an option, it might be hard for them to go where there's no one. So you might end up with some heavier groups than others.
Yeah. And then if you have, I think that balance of groups is really an important thing. So if you have too many people in a group, right, that's kind of an easy group to be in, right? Because I can just sit in there and say, I'm just going to listen to see what happens and let other people talk, right? But if you're like one of two people in a group, that forces you to sort of take a little bit more of the responsibility on. Go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, I noticed that too, that people were in the group I was about to, and when they saw they were alone, they quickly exited because they didn't want to be alone. So what if you are able to maybe set students up in advance to say, hey, can you help me and be a moderator for one of these groups? So at least there's one person. In our program, we're fortunate to have a lot of facilitators. So I make sure there's one in each group, even though they can choose and hop out, because we've done that activity too. But you can do that with students to ask them to be in a group to help be a leader so they aren't alone, because I could see people may wanted to talk about that topic, but when they found out no one was there, they quickly exited.
Right. Good point. What I'm going to try to do this afternoon for the class that I have is we're going to do the same activity, but they're all going to create on their slide. So everybody has a slide already set up. They all have their own slide set up. And then they are going to create that slide as a way to sort of lure people into their group. So I'm going to have them make a poster advertising their idea and their the course that they're designing, and then try to lure students in. So it's sort of a design activity. That would be a much longer activity than a 15-minute one. It'll probably be something that takes a week for them to do, but we're going to introduce that this afternoon. But that'd be another way to do that. All right. Any last thoughts about this activity that we just tried and it went okay, which was kind of cool? Michael.
Yeah, John, just following up groups now, what you just did reminds me of developing more momentum the more I use breakout groups, and that is, we talked about this a little bit, to have my radar up if I am, as the moderator, visiting groups, start to notice and whether it's jot down notes or whatever, but if there is interaction happening in that group that seems germane to the entire class, I'll ask if that student or students will be comfortable sharing it when we get back to the main room. So to have that forecasted up front as sort of a prompt, and when we come back to this, it really helps fill the dead space when I say, okay, so I had groups give me permission to call on them and then launch into that one at a time. And it's a way to kind of keep pace with more input, student-derived content. It just seems to contribute to momentum.
Yeah, I think that structure is really important, and I'm realizing that that's not a thing that we're doing right now. I'm not going back and saying, okay, group 2, report back. What did you talk about? And in part, I think that because in group 4 with the group projects, we were like, I don't know how many like great ideas we came up with, because we talked about how frustrating group ideas or group projects are. But that follow-up, I think, is a really important thing. All right. On the activities sheet, I have, if you like this kind of a thing, I've got 10 other ways to use Google Slides and Docs on this type of structured activity. This week, I tried to do a lot more sort of practical options. So if you've never used Iron Chef slides, or didn't know that there was such a thing as Iron Chef slides, here's a way to do that. Here's a template for creating sticky notes for brainstorming things you might do on your classroom wall. You can do in this kind of a structured breakout group. They even have like document analysis and annotation options. This thing called a cyber sandwich that I've never heard of before. I don't know if you want to do a TikTok, but you can have your students do sort of a TikTok. I'll tell you, those K-12 teachers, they are creative. So there's some great resources there. One of the things, in some ways what we did was we did a caucus, right? So it's offering the students choice. And you could have just as easily started this for the first time that you did it, saying, all right, let's figure out what we're going to talk about. If you want to talk about pizza or pasta, go to group 1. If you want to talk about pasta, go to group 2. And that gives students a really low effort, well, maybe high effort, but low stakes way to sort of figure out, how do I move back and forth between breakout groups? And once they figure that out, then you can up the ante and say, all right, now let's go to a breakout group where you make a choice and you work together on that. But that would be a way to sort of scaffold up to what I had you guys do, and we just sort of figured out on our own. All right. Yes. Welcome, Duncan. Let's see. There you go. There's the activity sheet.
Yeah, you just posted it. Thank you.
Yep, you got it. All right. So in the activity sheet, I'll talk about like what does it take to be motivated to have that trust where we can start to work authentically with the people that we're in a group with, whether it's a breakout group or a class group at the beginning of a class, or whatever group project. I talk about some of the engagement spaces, and you probably all know Canvas discussion boards are pretty terrible casual conversation, right? It seems very forced. It seems very, I don't know, constrained, and like I don't want to hang out in a Canvas discussion board. So what are some options outside of that? There's a really cool paper that I just read that Dan and Sandrine Appel were working on that talks about just have the students get out of class and call each other or chat with each other using whatever things they want to do, at their own time. Don't force them to work in Canvas necessarily, and that'll make it a little bit more casual. I've got a couple of quick icebreakers. There's a lot other ones that are there, but let's start looking at some of these obstacles. All right. Engagement and seeking activities across time zones. I see that nobody has offered a suggestion for that. Any ideas? It seems to me that if you're working across time zones, if you've got somebody across the world and it's 4 o'clock in the morning and you're having a synchronous class, it could be really difficult for them. If you're doing an asynchronous discussion or breakout group and you want to be engaged, that seems like it'd be a better choice for that, to let them engage when they can, when they're feeling most up for it. I think that sometimes forcing people to engage synchronously is a difficult challenge because you don't know what's going on in their lives right now. It might be 4 o'clock in the morning and you don't realize it, or they might have a kid who's having a meltdown and you don't know that, so they might not be ready to engage. Or they might have just gotten out of a really terrible class where they had to work in a group project with somebody and it wasn't going well, and now they come into yours and you want them to engage there as well. They might not want to do that. It might be hard to do that. All right. I'm gonna thank you, Karen and Anonymous Giraffe, for adding things to that, and Yulia. Thank you for that. Let's go on to the next one. I'd be interested in more ways to add physical movement into synchronous online sessions. I posted the question on Facebook of like, what are the things that you can do? And somebody responded, random dance parties, where you just kind of get up and you're like, all right, everybody get up and move around. You can do that. Any other ideas that people have? I was at a conference with kinesiology folks, and they talked about starting your class with some sort of a stretch. And you can do this over your Zoom, right? Or, stretch and spin around, stand up, touch your toes, or bend over, whatever. But yeah, some sort of movement, because I've been in this chair for most of the day and I really need to get up. Like just doing that as a demo, I was like, wow, this is actually good. Very good. So yeah, keeping their Minds and bodies awake. That's good. Some of these activities where they find something from the room, that's a brilliant idea. That gets them to stand up and go find something. I think I shared this at some active teaching lab in the past, but I had a colleague at the Rochester Institute for Technology who would give students points for if they could find a talisman in his office. So he had this thing hidden in his office, and this was his trick to get students to come talk to him in office hours. But they would have to go rummage through his bookshelves and drawers and stuff in his office to try to find these things. And you're not going to do that in your office, in somebody's office, unless you're also going to say, "Oh, how's it going? Don't mind me. Can you move aside?" That kind of so. But doing it in your own room, like, all right, I'm going to go find. Let's see. Oh, here's a thing of envelopes that I want to do a little show and tell about. That's kind of a neat prompt. Unison, singing in unison is, I love that idea. I think we're going to get to that someday, but right now, I don't know if you've ever tried singing together with the delays, it just doesn't work. Good, keep adding ideas. Ooh, I like this one, Megan. It would be hysterical with the delays. Very good point. All right. The next one for breakout groups in a Blackboard Collaborate in a fairly large class. I like to try to move around as efficiently as I can. It is so clunky to switch groups. Really good observation, and it is really hard. And here's the other thing about moving into a breakout group. As soon as you as the instructor moves into the breakout group, what happens? It's like pop the instructor standing there. What happens to all the conversations happening? They stop talking. Exactly. They stop talking because they're waiting for you to say something, and then you have to take time to sort of say, "Oh, I just want to know what you're talking about," and then they look at each other and they say, "Well," and so that it can be a waste of time. One of the things that the Google Slides lets you do is you can go in and leave comments. They don't know that you're looking, but you can just go in very quickly, switch from slide to slide, so you can't hear what they're saying, but you can see what they're writing. So if you give them a structured activity, you can say, "Oh, point number 2 is a really good point," and you can write that up as a comment. And if they're not doing anything, if they've got nothing there at all, then you can decide, "I'm going to go visit that breakout group in person," because it costs you some time to go do that clunky maneuvering in Blackboard Collaborate to get into that breakout group. So it should be worth it, and it's worth it if they're not doing anything and you don't know how they're responding. So popping in the slides is a really good way to do that. Michael, did you want to say something? Go ahead.
I just wanted to double check the response there. So the entry door remains active during the breakout groups. All I'll have to hit. I'm in group 4. Group
Yes.
will have an entry door. All I have to do is click it.
Yep.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
In theory, it should work that way.
I have net from a moderator view. Those doors are always there, regardless of whether or not you allow attendees to switch.
Yeah. That's what I was seeing too. So it was confusing to me to try to figure out what's going on. So I'm glad you did, Karen. All right, excellent. All right, suggestions for teaching students how to give peer feedback on each other's projects. Oh, there is a really good, the Writing Across the Curriculum guidebook has great rubrics on how to scaffold that peer feedback or how to prompt that peer feedback. So there's a great resource there. I wonder if somebody can go to that Writing Across the Curriculum and find a link to that. I know that we've had things in past active teaching labs on, I think it was in rubrics that I've got links to that as well. But yeah, so this is great. We've got people who are willing to share theirs. That's awesome. This is what I love about the Active Teaching Lab, by the way. You all come with your own expertise, and it saves me from having to have everything at hand. I really appreciate that. And it's real, right? I'm not just saying, in theory, this should work, but you can say this actually worked in my physics class. And that's very concrete. All right. Again, I want to invite everybody to just raise your hand, and I will call on you if you want to take on the mic and say something. Otherwise, I'll just keep on going. Early semester synchronous attendance can be worth the time and follow-up. Oh yeah, Javier, go ahead.
Hi everyone, Javier. Thanks, John, again. My question was on the peer review question and comment. Do you reward the peer review as part of the assignment? As in, is it added separately, or how do you evaluate it as an instructor?
All right, I think that it's very important to, if you want the students to do a good job with it, you need to make it worth some points. If you just say, do this out of the goodness of your heart, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. And I think the farther along students are in their study, and the farther along they start to see themselves as professionals in your discipline, the more they'll be able to say, oh yeah, I will do this for you because this will help us as a discipline. And I am as a budding whateverologist, I can do this. But at those early years, that first year and second year student, they're not ready to do that yet. So I think that they need that little nudge with the carrot or the stick, however you look at it, to do that. And they need practice. Yeah, please, Duncan, please.
I always raise this point about group work. It is illegal in the state of Wisconsin that a student's score depends on the works of another student. So you cannot use the peer review itself, its content, to impact the reviewed student's score. What I do is require peer review and require that they complete the peer review.
Yes.
And then I can credit that. That's their individual work. And I make sure that all the students, it's very clear that no student feels like their score will be impacted by the review.
So they need to know what they're doing, and you give them credit for doing it, but not necessarily for the content of what they say or what they did. And again, to sort of amplify the point about students scoring other students, it's up to the instructor. The instructor has to be the grader. You cannot have students grade each other. They can offer suggestions to you, but you can then go in as an instructor and make the decision, but they cannot give each other a grade and then you just take that and go with it. All right, so that has to be your responsibility as an instructor. Good, thank you. All right, Jerome asks, practically, how do you work the grading of peer review into the assignments on Canvas? The way that I've seen it done, and I encourage others to jump in again, is that's a different assignment. So the assignment is one, but then the peer review of the assignment is a separate assignment. Jerome?
Yeah, just to make sure that I understand what you're talking about, because I've used peer review in Canvas when I set up an assignment, I check the peer review box, but you're setting that up as an extra assignment in Canvas on top of the original document that students are sharing?
I'm seeing feedback on that. Go ahead.
I don't know how to do that. I'm not sure that's possible. What I do is I then make a separate assignment in which they vouchsafe that they completed the peer review. I can check that. It's possible.
Okay.
But I don't know how to assign. What you're asking for is functionality that would be great, but I don't think exists.
Karen Spader? Yes. Oh, thank you.
Sure. So with peer review and Canvas, it's basically just an add-on functionality to an assignment. So any assignment, even discussions, I don't think quizzes, even discussions though, I think, gosh, now I'm second guessing myself. Anyway, assignments for sure. You can check the box that's allow peer review. And basically what it's doing is giving the peer access to the submission. And the grade is still on the individual student's paper, not on the peer review. So you don't have to set up some other assignment. If you wanted to give points toward completing the peer review, you'd have to set up another line item, if you will, for peer review completion, so to speak. And whatever, you submit a statement, a reflection, whatever it might be, but that would have to be separate from the document that's getting peer reviewed.
All right. Awesome. Thank you very much for clarifying that. Hey, everybody, it is 2:01. So we only had this one thing left, so that, that's not terrible timing. There are some responses here already. Thank you for putting those in. Thank you all for coming and for playing along today as we explored this. The activity sheet will stick around, and I'll stick around for the next few minutes if you have some questions, but you are all free to go, and thank you for playing along today. Come back next week. We'll try something new.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Karen and Sid and Karen Skiba as well for helping me figure stuff out today.
All right, thank you, and remember to stop recording.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. I'm going to do that right now.